In every city, there are places no one wants to live. Rooms that seem too quiet, too cheap, too good to be true. They say, when the clock strikes 3:03 a.m., something begins to breathe beneath the bed. And if you ever dare to look, it might already be looking back at you. This is the story of room 404, where every tenant leaves behind a shadow that never sleeps. Chapter 1. Room 404. The autumn wind howled through the narrow alleys of Tokyo. Aiko dragged her old suitcase behind her and stopped in front of a 4-story building hidden deep in a small backstreet. The signboard that once read, Sakura Heights, was faded, the paint peeling off, the letters tilting as if about to fall. For Aiko, this was the start of her new life, alone, after a painful breakup. The landlord, a middle-aged woman dressed in a dark kimono, opened the door. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. Greater than, room 404, 3rd floor. The rent is low because, well, some tenants complained about strange noises at night. Aiko smiled faintly. Greater than, that's fine. I'm a heavy sleeper. The woman stared at her for a long moment before speaking again, her tone barely above a whisper. Greater than, if you happen to hear something late at night, don't look under the bed. Pretend you didn't hear anything. Aiko blinked, a bit confused, but dismissed it as superstition. She nodded politely. The room was small, a little dark, but cozy enough. A window faced the neighboring building, letting in a thin line of pale light. The air smelled faintly of dust and something old, something forgotten. The furniture was simple, a small wooden bed, a nightstand, a desk, a wardrobe, and a round mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. Under the bed was a black, hollow shadow, deep and silent. Greater than, at least it's clean, Aiko muttered to herself. That night, she unpacked, played some music on her laptop, and lay down to rest. The curtain swayed gently as the wind blew. The only sound in the room was the steady ticking of the clock. Then she heard it, a faint noise from below the floorboards. Creak. Aiko opened her eyes, listening. Again, creak, creak, like fingernails scraping against wood. Greater than, probably just a rat, she whispered to herself, pulling the blanket tighter. The sound stopped. The room fell silent again. She closed her eyes, trying to sleep, until she heard it, a slow, raspy breathing coming from under the bed. It was close, too close. She could feel the cold breath brushing against her ear. Her heart pounded. Greater than, no, I'm imagining it. Aiko almost turned to look, but the landlord's words flashed in her mind. Greater than, if you hear something strange, don't look under the bed. She squeezed her eyes shut, turned toward the wall, and held her breath. The breathing continued, long, deep, and steady, as if someone was lying right beneath her, breathing in sync with her. Just as sleep began to pull her down, she heard a voice, soft, whispering from beneath the pillow. Greater than, Aiko, don't open your eyes. Chapter 2. The First Breath. The morning light was weak and pale as it crept through the thin curtain, scattering across the cracked ceiling. Aiko woke up with a dull headache. She vaguely remembered the sounds from last night, the creaking, the breathing, and that whisper that called her name. But when she opened her eyes, the room was still, silent. Nothing seemed out of place. She laughed it off nervously. Greater than, I must have been dreaming, she whispered. Curiosity got the better of her. She crouched and peeked under the bed. Only darkness stared back, deep and empty. She exhaled. A cool draft brushed the back of her neck, making her shiver. That afternoon, Aiko went to her part-time job at a small cafe near the train station. While chatting during a break, she casually mentioned her new apartment. Her coworker, Yuna, froze mid-sentence. Greater than, room 404? She repeated. You mean in Sakura Heights? Aiko nodded. Greater than, yeah, why? Yuna's face went pale. Greater than, a girl died there years ago. They found her body under the bed after a week, when the smell started spreading. Aiko's hands trembled slightly. Greater than, you're kidding, right? Greater than, no. But don't worry. They said the place was blessed after that. You'll be fine. Aiko smiled faintly, but her stomach turned cold. That night, she decided to sleep with the lights on. 3 a.m. The clock ticked steadily. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Aiko rolled over, the blanket slipping off her shoulder. Then she felt it again, the cold air rising from beneath the bed. Khhh. The sound of breathing. Slow, heavy, rhythmic. She froze. Eyes wide open, she could hear her heart pounding in her ears. The breathing was right there, underneath her. Then came a soft sound, a pull. Her bedsheet was being dragged down, inch by inch. Aiko shot up, trembling, and turned on the light. The room was empty. Her gaze fell to the floor, nothing. Just dust. But as she knelt closer, her light caught something odd. A streak in the dust, as if something had crawled there recently. The next morning, she tried to ignore it. She cleaned the floor, changed her bedsheet. But when she lifted the blanket, her blood ran cold. On the edge of the fabric was a faint handprint, small, thin, with only 4 fingers. She stared in horror. The air in the room suddenly turned cold again. From beneath the bed, she heard a whisper, so faint it almost blended with the hum of silence. Greater than, I'm cold. Chapter 3. The handprint on the floor. The sky over Tokyo was gray that day. Thick clouds blocked out the sunlight, casting a dim, heavy gloom inside room 404. Aiko sat silently by the table, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. She hadn't slept since that night. The breathing, the dragging, the handprint with only 4 fingers, all of it kept replaying in her mind like a nightmare that refused to end. Her phone buzzed. It was Yuna. Greater than, Aiko. Are you okay? You look exhausted lately. I'm fine. Aiko lied. Just haven't been sleeping well. Are you sure you don't want to stay at my place? No, I'll be fine. But even as she said it, she could feel eyes on her, watching, waiting. Every step she took in that room echoed like someone was following from below. That afternoon, Aiko decided to clean. She wanted to make herself believe everything was normal. She knelt by the bed, pulling out boxes and old magazines left behind by the previous tenant. Beneath them, she found a crumpled piece of paper, smeared with dust and old stains. On it, written in smeared red ink, were 6 chilling words. Greater than, don't lie on my spot again. Aiko froze. The handwriting was messy, desperate, and the ink was still damp. Her eyes darted toward the shadow under the bed. It looked darker than usual. She switched on her phone flashlight and shone it beneath. At first, there was only dust. Then her light caught something on the wooden floor. A black, wet stain in the shape of a human hand, with 6 fingers. Aiko stumbled backward, her body shaking. Greater than, no. The handprint was small, thin, and each finger bent backward, grotesquely twisted. Beside it, faint drag marks streaked toward the door, as if someone had been pulled out from under the bed. That night, she couldn't stop staring at the floor. She sat upright on her bed, clutching the blanket to her chest. The clock ticked. The silence grew. Then, click, the light flickered, dimmed, and went out. A sound cracked through the dark, snap. Like the sound of a bone breaking. Aiko gasped, heart pounding. From under the bed came the familiar rasping breath. But now, it was followed by a whisper, rough and broken. Greater than, don't sleep. Here. She screamed, turning on the light, nothing. Only the floor. But on it, the 6-fingered handprint was fresh again, glistening red. Blood. The next morning, she rewatched the video footage from her phone camera she'd left recording overnight. Everything looked normal at first. Then, near the end, she saw herself asleep. And from beneath the bed, a pale hand reached out, stroked her hair gently, and slipped back into the shadows. The screen went black. The recording ended. Aiko dropped her phone. And for a moment, She thought she heard someone laughing softly right under her bed. Chapter 4: The Neighbor Next Door. After that night of terror, Aiko couldn't sleep inside the room anymore. She sat curled on the tiny balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring down the dark alley below. Drizzle floated through the air, the street light flickered weakly, its glow distorted like an unblinking eye watching from below. A door creaked open beside her. A thin, middle-aged man with messy hair leaned out. He wore a frayed jacket and held a cigarette between trembling fingers. "Greater than, you're the new tenant in 404, right?" he rasped. Aiko nodded. "Greater than, yes, I'm Aiko. I'm Nakata, from 403. If you hear strange noises, don't panic. This building's old, it likes to talk." He gave a dry, humorless laugh, but there was pity in his eyes. The next day Aiko knocked on 403 with a box of cookies. When Nakata opened the door, she hesitated. "Greater than, Mr. Nakata? Did something happen in 404 before I moved in?" The man fell silent. His gaze drifted past her shoulder, into memory. Finally he sighed. "Greater than, you really want to know? Please." "Greater than, 4 years ago a young woman lived in that room. She was alone, like you. She kept hearing noises under the bed, and then she vanished. A week later the smell started. When the police broke the bed open, they found her, stuffed underneath, lying on her back, eyes wide, arms reaching up, like she was trying to pull someone down with her." Aiko's face drained of color. "Greater than, did they find who did it?" Nakata shook his head. "Greater than, no. And ever since, every tenant's left within days. They say each night there's breathing, and sometimes, a face staring from under the floorboards." Aiko went home trembling. That night she locked every bolt, pulled the curtains shut, and left the light on. At 2:59 a.m., the bulb flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. From beneath the bed came a hoarse, rasping laugh, long, broken, echoing. "Greater than, I'm still here." Aiko screamed, switching on her phone light. The beam slid across the floor, then froze, on a pale face beneath the bed, eyes hollow, staring straight up at her. She stumbled backward, breath ragged. When she blinked, the face was gone. Only a thin trail of moisture glistened on the floorboards, and the air had turned icy cold. The next morning Aiko went to check on 403. The door was unlocked. Inside, the room was dark, empty. Nakata was gone. On the floor lay a still smoldering cigarette. And on the wall, scrawled in charcoal, a single warning. "Greater than, she's awake now. Don't let it pull you down." Chapter 5: The Face in the Dark. Since Nakata's disappearance, the building had grown unnaturally quiet. No TVs. No footsteps in the hallway. Only the sighing of the wind through cracked windows and the metallic clink of doors trembling in their frames. Aiko kept her room locked, curtains drawn tight. She tried not to think of the message on the wall, "She's awake now." But something inside her knew, she was no longer alone. Each time she walked, she could hear another set of footsteps following hers, perfectly in sync. When she stopped, so did they. That evening, she showered early. Steam fogged the small mirror in the bathroom. She wiped it clean with a towel, and froze. Her reflection stared back, pale, with sunken eyes and messy hair. She gave a weak laugh. "Greater than, God, I look awful." She turned away to grab her towel. When she looked back, her reflection was still staring at her. But she herself hadn't moved. Aiko blinked. The image inside the mirror tilted its head slightly. Then it smiled. A slow, crooked smile that stretched, and kept stretching until it tore across both cheeks. "Greater than, hello, Aiko." The voice came not from behind her, but from inside the mirror, wet, muffled, as though it were spoken through a mouth full of water. Aiko screamed, threw the towel over the mirror, and ran out. The bathroom door slammed shut on its own, but from behind it she could still hear faint laughter. A soft, broken, KH. Dash dash dash. That night she refused to sleep. She sat on the floor by the bed, the lamp flickering weakly. The towel she had thrown earlier now lay crumpled on the floor. The mirror was uncovered again. Her reflection stared back at her in the dim light. Something was wrong with it. Its lips moved before hers did. Aiko's reflection winked. She hadn't. The reflection tilted its head further, the same crooked smile splitting wider. Her hands shook. Greater than, don't look away. The reflection whispered. I want to see my face clearly. Then crack, a sharp sound split the silence. A hairline fracture ran across the mirror, right through the reflection's forehead. Aiko stumbled backward, clutching her chest. The light flickered out. When morning came, she dared to look again. The mirror looked normal, unbroken. But when she leaned closer, she saw a small handprint pressed inside the glass. Tiny, delicate, and with 6 fingers. Chapter 6: The Old Diary. For 3 nights straight, Aiko couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mizuki, the girl from the rumors, standing in the corner of her room. Her hair hung over her face, her hollow eyes fixed on Aiko, unblinking. She didn't know anymore what was real and what was dream. Her body felt heavy, her head throbbed constantly. But that morning, desperate to do something, anything, she decided to clean again. As if tidying the room could drive away the fear that had rooted itself inside her. Dash dash dash. While moving a small dresser, she noticed the back panel of the wall sounded hollow. Not solid wood, there was space behind it. Curious, she picked up a knife and pried at the crack. The old panel broke away easily, revealing a narrow cavity inside the wall. There, wrapped in a yellowed plastic bag, was a small leather notebook, damp, moldy, and caked with dust. She pulled it out carefully and opened it. The very first line made her freeze. Greater than, if you're reading this, I'm probably already dead. The handwriting was uneven, trembling, but the red ink still looked fresh. Dash dash dash. The diary belonged to Mizuki, the girl who had once lived in room 404. Aiko turned the fragile pages with shaking fingers. Greater than, the first night, I heard something under the bed. I thought it was a rat. The third night, my bedsheet was pulled down. I could hear someone breathing. A week later, I saw a hand with 6 fingers. It touched my foot. The next pages were smeared, torn, some words carved deep into the paper as if written in panic. Greater than, it said, it was buried here. I saw myself in the mirror, but it smiled back. If I disappear, don't sleep on that bed. Only half of the final page remained, ripped down the middle. One sentence was still clear. Greater than, it's right under my feet. Dash dash dash. Aiko dropped the notebook and stumbled backward. Her whole body was shaking. The air in the room had changed, thicker, heavier. The musty smell was now mixed with something else, metallic, sharp. The smell of blood. She bent down to pick up the diary. When she straightened, the mirror across the room reflected her holding it. And a figure crawling out from under the bed behind her. She turned quickly. Nothing there. But the floorboards beneath her feet sagged slightly, as if something was breathing just below. Dash dash dash. That night, Aiko fell into an uneasy half-sleep, clutching the diary to her chest. In the haze between dream and waking, she heard a whisper at her ear. Greater than, thank you for reading my diary. Now I can see the light again. Aiko's eyes shot open. A pale face hovered inches from hers, its mouth stretched open. Red and smiling. Chapter 7: The Dream of the Dead. Ever since reading Mizuki's diary, Aiko had been unable to sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Mizuki's face, white as wax, her eyes clouded and hollow, staring straight into her. Days bled into nights. Aiko's body was weak, her hands shaking, her skin pale. But on the 4th night, exhaustion overcame fear. She finally drifted off. Dash dash dash. She dreamt she was lying in her bed as usual. The room was silent. Too silent. There was no ticking clock, no hum of the city outside, just a dense, heavy quiet pressing in from all sides. Her eyes opened. The ceiling was colorless, the air thick. She felt it instantly. Someone else was in the room. But she couldn't move. Her body was paralyzed. Her eyes darted frantically, searching. The corner of the room darkened. Something was there. It began to move, slowly crawling across the floor toward the bed. No sound, no breath. Only the faint scrape of nails dragging across wood. The thing reached the edge of the bed and slipped beneath her. The mattress lifted slightly, sagging again with each slow inhale. Aiko realized it was lying directly under her. Then the world flipped. She was falling. The air whooshed past her ears. And when she hit the ground, the light vanished. Aiko opened her eyes. She was under the bed. The air was thick and wet, the smell of blood everywhere. Above her, through the narrow gap between mattress and floor, she could see her own body. Herself, sleeping peacefully on the bed. She tried to scream, but her throat wouldn't open. No sound came out. From the darkness beside her, a cold hand rested on her shoulder. She turned her head. Mizuki sat there, her face inches away, skin paper white, eyes hollow, a smile carved too wide across her face. Greater than, I used to be here. Now it's your turn. Aiko shook her head violently, tears spilling. Mizuki leaned closer, whispering, her voice like wind through a grave. Greater than, when you wake up, don't look under the bed. Because if you do, you'll see yourself still lying here. Aiko jolted awake, drenched in sweat. The lamp was still on. Everything looked normal. She sighed shakily, forcing herself to believe it was only a nightmare. Then her foot touched the floor. It was wet, sticky. She looked down and saw bloody handprints trailing from the bed to where she stood. 6 fingers each, still glistening. And from under the bed came that same sound. A long, raspy breath. Chapter 8: The Door at Night. Aiko was no longer sure what was real. The nightmare had followed her into waking life. Every shadow seemed to move when she wasn't looking. Every creak in the floor made her heart stop. She decided she needed proof, something to convince herself she wasn't insane. That night, she set up her camera on the nightstand, pointing it directly at the bed. The red light blinked softly as she whispered to herself. Greater than, if you're really there, I'll see you. 3 a.m. A faint rattle came from the door. Aiko's eyes snapped open. She glanced at the clock, 3:03. The doorknob trembled, slowly, deliberately. It began to turn. The door creaked open with a long, painful screech. Aiko held her breath, staring at the empty, black hallway beyond. Nothing moved. But on her camera, the red indicator light started blinking rapidly. Motion detected. Aiko crawled toward it, trembling. She looked into the small screen. And froze. In the grainy night vision, a shadow was entering through the open door. A tall, thin figure with long hair covering its face. It walked silently to the bed, leaned forward, and crawled underneath it. On the screen, Aiko could still be seen lying asleep above. She screamed and threw the camera across the room, the crash echoing off the walls. The lights came on. Nothing was there. No one. Greater than, I'm losing my mind, she whispered, gasping. But behind her, the door slowly closed with a heavy click. Metal groaned. Then came 3 soft knocks from the other side. Greater than, knock, knock, knock. Aiko froze. A woman's voice followed, hoarse, low, whispering directly against the wood. Greater than, I'm back. Aiko. She turned sharply. The door was still shut. But a bloody handprint had appeared on it, 5 fingers spread wide. And a 6th, long one dangling below the handle. Morning. Aiko gathered her courage and played back the video. Everything seemed normal until 3:03 a.m. Then, without warning, the image went black, no sound, no light. When the feed returned, she was still asleep in bed. But this time, the door was wide open. And right in front of the camera, filling the frame, was a pale face, staring directly into the lens. It was her own. Chapter 9: The Neighbor's Warning. 3 days had passed since the video. Aiko couldn't bring herself to watch it again. She locked the camera away. But every night at exactly 3:03 a.m., her phone rang. The caller ID made her blood run cold. Nakata. The man who had vanished. The first night, she let it ring. The second night, she unplugged the phone. But on the third, she broke. Her hands trembled as she answered. Greater than, hello. From the other end came only a rough, ragged breathing. Hoarse, shallow, like air forced through a crushed throat. She was about to hang up when she heard it. Greater than, don't look under the bed? Then silence. The call ended. On the screen. Call time, 3:03 a.m. Duration, 13 seconds. Aiko collapsed to the floor. The phone clutched in her hands. That number, that time, always the same. The next morning, she opened her door to go to work. And gagged. A wave of stench hit her, thick and sour like rotting meat. She stepped into the hallway and froze. A dark trail stained the floor, starting from room 403, Nakata's room, and stretching all the way to her own door. Blood. Old, black, and sticky. Her doorknob was wet. She touched it. When she looked at her fingers, they were red. On the wooden surface of the door, written in smeared blood, were 4 words. Greater than, it's already inside. She slammed the door shut and stumbled back. The room was still. Too still. Then came the faint sound, scratching, beneath the floorboards. Scratch, scratch, scratch? Slow, patient, like something tracing circles beneath her. She covered her ears, crying out. Greater than, stop it. Stop. The sound ceased. Silence. Then, softly, another noise replaced it. The dragging of something heavy. Sliding along the floor under the bed. Her phone rang again. The same number. Her breath hitched. She lifted it to her ear. Greater than, Aiko. It was Nakata's voice, weak, broken, terrified. Greater than, it's not under the bed anymore. It's standing right behind you. The phone slipped from her hand. She turned around and stared straight into a white face only inches away. Black, empty eyes. A mouth torn into a grin. In its hand was Nakata's phone, the screen still glowing. The call had ended. Chapter 10: The Empty Bed. Aiko was barely recognizable anymore. Her skin had gone pale. Her lips cracked. Her hands shook even in daylight. She had stopped eating, stopped leaving the room. The air inside 404 was damp, heavy, and reeked of rust and something else, something like old blood. That night, she decided to end it. Not out of courage, but because she could no longer stand living with the fear. She needed to see it, to know the truth with her own eyes. She set her phone to record, its trembling light the only illumination in the dark room. The bulb above flickered weakly and died, leaving only the cold blue glow of her screen. Aiko crouched beside the bed, whispering to herself. Greater than, if you're down there, I'll find you. Slowly, she bent forward, the light sweeping across the dusty floor. Dust, hair, a pair of slippers. Then, nothing. Just a void of darkness stretching beneath the bed. Her breath caught. Nothing moved. No shadow, no sound. A nervous laugh escaped her lips. Greater than, nothing, there's nothing. I'm losing my mind. She sat back, crying in relief and exhaustion. But on her phone screen, still recording, something else was happening. Behind her, in the dim frame of the bed, a shadow was rising. Something thin, pale, climbing onto the bed. Aiko froze when she heard the creak of the mattress. Her head turned slowly. The blanket on the bed was lifting, rising and falling gently. As if something was lying beneath it. Greater than, no, please. No. She approached, one trembling hand reaching for the edge of the blanket. Mr. Nakata's warning echoed in her mind. Greater than, don't look down. Don't let it see you. But this time, there was no down. The thing was above. Aiko gripped the blanket and pulled it back. Her scream caught in her throat. Lying there was herself. Her own face, pale and motionless, eyes wide open. The reflection of her own body turned its head, smiled, and whispered, "Greater than, I told you. It's empty down there now. It's your turn." The phone clattered to the floor, still recording. The screen shook violently. In the video, Aiko could be seen crawling backward, sobbing. Then the Aiko on the bed sat up, twisted, and began to climb down. Step by step, it moved toward her, each motion jerky and wrong, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. A cold, six-fingered hand reached out and brushed her cheek. "Greater than? Who are you?" Aiko gasped. "Greater than, I'm the one who used to sleep beneath your bed." The next morning, the neighbors complained of a foul smell. When police broke open room 404, the place was neat and spotless. The bed was made. No one inside. Under the bed, nothing but emptiness. But on the mattress, indented into the sheets, was the faint outline of a body. And written in dried blood were 3 words. "Greater than, it's my turn." Chapter 11: The Exorcism. A week after Aiko's disappearance, the landlord called for help. She trembled as she stood in the dim hallway, wringing her hands. "Greater than, please, do something. Every night I hear tapping on the walls, and breathing under the floor." The man she'd summoned was Master Shunpei, a seasoned exorcist known in Kyoto for cleansing temples and cursed homes. He stopped before the door of room 404, murmuring a prayer. "Greater than, Namu Amida Butsu." The air around him shifted. A chill rolled through the corridor, and he could see his own breath mist in the air. He opened his eyes. The frame of the door was smudged with black handprints, as if someone had tried to crawl out and been dragged back in. "Greater than, there's more than one spirit here," he said quietly. "They've trapped each other inside." Inside, the smell was overwhelming, rot and iron. The only light came from the gray morning seeping through torn curtains. The wooden floor creaked beneath his feet. The bed still stood in the center of the room, its frame cracked but untouched. Shunpei placed 3 candles on the floor in a triangle, along with a bowl of holy water and a gold sealing charm etched with the kanji feng seal. He lit the incense and began to chant. Smoke coiled upward, swirling thickly around him. Then, whoosh, the candle to his left went out. The air turned heavy, pressing on his chest. The floorboards groaned. "Greater than, show yourself," he commanded. For a moment, nothing. Then the mattress lifted, rising and falling as though something underneath was breathing. A burst of wind snuffed out the remaining candles. From beneath the bed came a woman's whisper. "Greater than, leave, this is my place." Shunpei pulled out his rosary beads, chanting louder. "Greater than, Om Mani Padme Hum." The words echoed, vibrating through the walls. From the shadows beneath the bed, a figure slowly emerged. A woman's body, her face pale and hollow, eyes blank, hair hanging to the floor. A deep gash ran across her throat, leaking thick, black blood. "Greater than, Mizuki," Shunpei said softly. "You've been here long enough. Leave this world." Her lips quivered. "Greater than, I want to, but it won't let me." "Greater than, it?" he asked. "What is it?" Before she could answer, the floor cracked open. A black hand shot out from beneath the bed, seized Mizuki's ankle, and yanked her down screaming into the darkness. Shunpei threw a seal to the ground, reciting faster and faster. The room trembled. A blast of cold air surged up from the floor. And then, silence. He knelt, placing a hand on the wooden boards. They were still warm. "Greater than, something stronger than a vengeful spirit," he muttered. "Something that doesn't just kill, but feeds." He turned to the landlord, who was weeping at the door. "Greater than, this room must be sealed. If anyone opens it again, more will die." She nodded through tears. As Shunpei gathered his tools, A loose scrap of paper fluttered out from beneath the ashes of the candles. He bent to pick it up. In faint, reddish letters, it read, "Greater than, don't trust the light. It hides in your shadow." Chapter 12 The Voice in the Night. Tokyo slept under a thin curtain of rain. The streets were empty. The city hummed faintly like something breathing in its sleep. At Sakura Heights, the lights were out. Room 404 had been sealed with layers of charms. But even from the hallway, a faint cold draft leaked out, as if the room itself was still alive. Master Shunpei sat in his car across the street, his prayer beads wrapped tightly around his wrist. He meant to leave that night, to forget the place. But as the clock ticked past 3 a.m., his phone began to ring. The caller ID froze his blood. Aiko. He hesitated, then answered. Greater than, Aiko. At first, nothing. Then a whisper, weak and trembling. Greater than, Master, it's so cold. Greater than, where are you? Tell me. Greater than, under the bed, it's dark here, but I can see him. The line crackled. The whisper turned into a gurgle, and then the call ended. The screen showed 3:03 a.m. Shunpei drove back to Sakura Heights. The rain had stopped, the world eerily still. When he reached the third floor, the air smelled of decay. The door to room 404 was still sealed, but at its center, one charm had been ripped open, a hand-shaped tear marring the paper. He touched it, feeling the icy breath that seeped through. Greater than, it's still feeding, he murmured. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was pitch dark. Only the sound of water dripping somewhere deep within the walls. Then, voices. Soft, layered whispers. Dozens of them. All whispering the same name. Greater than, Aiko, Aiko, Aiko. The voices came from below, under the floorboards. Shunpei knelt and pressed his ear to the ground. The wood vibrated with faint movements, as though something was crawling just beneath the surface. He took out another seal and began chanting. The candlelight flickered, and the whispers stopped. For a moment, silence. Then a woman's voice spoke clearly, close, right beside his ear. Greater than, she's still here, but she's not alone. The floor bulged beneath him. A hand, black, slick, and long-fingered, shot out from between the planks. He stumbled back, throwing his beads and reciting louder. A burst of light flared, forcing the hand to retreat with a hiss. When the smoke cleared, Shunpei looked down through the gap. Inside the dark space beneath the floor were faces, dozens of them, staring up at him with hollow eyes. Silent mouths opened in unending screams. He fell to his knees, trembling. The charm on his palm burned, letters glowing red. One single kanji stood out through the ashes. Sheng, life. His breath caught. Greater than, this isn't death, he whispered. This thing is alive. Chapter 13 The Last Day. After that night, Master Shunpei was never seen again. His car was found parked outside Sakura Heights. Engine still warm, the driver's seat empty. On the dashboard lay a single sheet of paper, written in red ink. Greater than, if anyone enters room 404. Burn it. Don't let the shadow leave. Weeks passed. The building was abandoned. The landlord locked every door. But every night at 3:03 a.m., the light inside room 404 flickered on by itself. People passing by claimed they saw a girl with long hair standing by the window. Her face turned toward the street. No one dared to go near. Until one night, when neighbors heard screams and the violent sound of something clawing against wood. The police arrived within minutes. The footage from the hallway camera became the final record of what happened. 2:59 a.m. The hallway was empty. 3 a.m. The door of room 404 creaked open. Light blinked inside, flickering like a heartbeat. 3:03 a.m. A figure crawled out of the room. A woman covered in blood, her hair tangled, her eyes pure white. Aiko. She crawled slowly on all fours, her joints cracking with every movement. When she reached the camera, she lifted her head. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide as a distorted voice rasped through the speaker. Greater than, it's still here. The screen distorted, colors bleeding together. Dozens of whispers echoed through the audio, overlapping, growing louder until they cut off with a snap. The video ended there. When morning came, the police forced the door open. The room was dark. The air reeked of death and iron. The walls were smeared with handprints, small, large, overlapping, hundreds of them. The bed had been torn apart. Underneath it was a hole, black and deep, breathing faintly like the mouth of something alive. One officer shone a flashlight into the hole and screamed. Dozens of pale faces looked up at him, eyes wide, mouths frozen open in silence. Then the light went out. Among the debris they found a burned phone, still half intact. The last video showed Aiko setting up the camera in front of her bed, whispering, "Greater than, I don't want to be afraid anymore. If it needs someone to stay under the bed, I'll take her place." Then she crawled beneath the bed. The screen shook, sounds warped, and the video ended with two rhythmic breaths. One human, and one not. The final frame captured a six-fingered hand gripping the edge of the mattress. Then, darkness. Sakura Heights was condemned. No one moved in again. But every night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., a dim light still glowed from the window of room 404. And if you looked closely, you could see a figure lying on the bed, and another shadow moving slowly underneath. Chapter 14: The Sealed Room. 3 months after Aiko's disappearance, the Sakura Heights building was deserted. Room 404 was sealed shut, plastered with police tape and dozens of spiritual charms. No one dared to go near the third floor. Yet at night, residents from the nearby apartment said they sometimes heard a woman's faint whisper drifting from the building. It always said the same thing. Greater than, don't leave me, stay here with me. A group of university students decided to investigate. They were filming a documentary about haunted locations in Tokyo, and Sakura Heights was the most infamous one of all. There were 4 of them: Yuto, Mina, and 2 others. They brought cameras, flashlights, and electromagnetic detectors. Yuto grinned at the lens. Greater than, room 404, Tokyo's cursed apartment. People say it's haunted, but we'll find out the truth tonight. He forced a laugh. No one else did. The lock on the door was rusted, brittle with age. One strong kick, and it broke open. The sound echoed down the empty hallway. The air that flowed out was icy and thick, reeking of rot and old metal. Their flashlights flickered as they stepped inside. The room was silent. The walls were still stained with dark brown handprints. In the center stood a splintered wooden bed frame. On the floor lay a half-burned phone. Greater than, this is it, Yuto whispered, crouching by the bed. The room where that girl, Aiko, disappeared. Mina's voice shook. Greater than, I don't like this. Can we just go? Greater than, relax, Yuto said, turning on the camera. If there are ghosts, we'll get views. The others didn't laugh. Then, beneath the bed, came a faint sound. Knock, knock, knock. Yuto frowned. Greater than, probably the pipes. He knelt and pressed his ear to the floor. Crack. A sharp noise split the air. A droplet of black liquid splashed onto his face. He wiped it off, and froze. Blood. Fresh blood. The camera tumbled to the ground, still recording. Through the shaky footage, a black hand with 6 fingers shot up from the crack in the floor, seized Yuto's ankle, and yanked him down. He screamed once, and then, silence. Blood sprayed across the wall. Mina fell back, shrieking. The door slammed shut, locking itself. The remaining 2 clawed at the handle, pounding in terror, but it wouldn't open. For 10 seconds, there was chaos. Then nothing. The room grew quiet again. Only the faint sound of breathing lingered beneath the bed. 3 days later, Police entered the building after neighbors reported a smell. The door to 404 was still locked from the inside. When they broke it down, the room was empty, except for a single camera lying on the floor. The footage lasted only 3 minutes. The final frame showed the broken bed. And under it, a shadow of a woman lying still, her long hair spread across the floor. When the image was enhanced, the technician whispered in disbelief. "Greater than, that's Ico. After that, the police resealed the room and welded the door shut. The entire building was fenced off, covered in charms. No one ever entered again. But every year, on October 13th, the light in room 404 flickers on at 3:03 a.m. And through the dusty window, two shapes can be seen, lying side by side on the bed." Chapter 15: The New Tenant. 2 years later, the building returned under a new name. The old sign Sakura Heights had been removed. In its place hung a fresh, bright plaque, Hikari Apartment. The walls were repainted, the floors polished, and the air smelled new again. As if nothing had ever happened. The rent was cheap. Too cheap. That was what drew Ren, a first-year university student, to it. When he arrived, the landlord smiled politely, handing him the keys. "Greater than, room 404. Yes? Don't worry about the rumors. Everything's been renovated, you'll be comfortable." Ren laughed. "Greater than, I don't believe in ghosts anyway." The landlord's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The room was clean and bright. Fresh paint on the walls, new curtains, even a small desk and lamp. Only one thing remained from before. A wooden bed, the landlord said, a classic, too nice to throw away. Ren unpacked, turned on some music, and lay down, exhausted. For the first time in months, he felt at peace. He fell asleep to the soft hum of the city outside. Then came a faint sound. Knock, knock. 3 slow taps from beneath the bed. Ren frowned, sitting up. "Greater than, pipes, maybe," he muttered, half amused. He lay down again. But the sound came back, longer this time. A dragging noise, like someone breathing under the floor. "Greater than, h. He turned on his phone flashlight and leaned over the edge of the bed. Darkness. Only the empty space below. But then, a glint. Something shiny. He squinted, seeing what looked like a pair of eyes reflecting the light. His throat went dry. "Greater than, hey, who's under there?" No reply. Then, a whisper, soft, wet, almost pleading. "Greater than, can you hear me breathing?" Ren froze. The light flickered. He dropped the phone, it rolled under the bed, still recording. The glow illuminated what lay beneath. A pale face, hair soaking wet, eyes wide and smiling. Ren stumbled back. The mattress creaked behind him. He turned and saw the blanket slowly rising and falling, as if someone was lying there now. "Greater than, no. The air turned cold, his breath visible. Then the whisper came again, this time from right beside his ear. "Greater than, it's so cold. Let me sleep with you." Morning. The landlord knocked. No answer. After several tries, he opened the door with a spare key. The room was spotless. The bed perfectly made. Ren was gone. On the desk sat his phone, still recording. The final seconds of the video showed the camera aimed at the bed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blanket shifted. And from underneath, a 6-fingered hand reached up and gripped the edge of the mattress. That night, the online listing for Hikari Apartment was updated. "Greater than, room 404 available, cozy, quiet, fully furnished. Comes with original wooden bed in excellent condition." And just like before, at 3:03 a.m., the light in that room turned on by itself. Through the window, you could see 2 shadows lying side by side. And a third, smaller one moving slowly underneath. The door is sealed again. The lights are off. But the breathing never stopped. Every few years, a new tenant moves in. And the cycle begins once more. Because in room 404, the bed is never truly empty. And the shadow beneath it always wants someone new to lie above.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.